Okay, this is Library on Legs coming to you from the basement. I can't wait to get back into the barnyard for regular stuff. This is my first top 10 from 2024. This list is, I wanted to do first because it's my top 10 books I read last year, or series I started from authors I'd never read before. So most of them are the first book in the series, which I do wholly intend to finish. And some of them are independent, not all of them. I have trouble figuring out what's independent and not independent audio. I'm doing more research now to try to pick up more independent titles, just because. So yeah, this is the top 10 from authors that I had not read before. Start with Steve McHugh and Those Who Dwell in Darkness, which was everything I wanted from Twilight, the films, and I read the books, but didn't get in the way of the sort of bigger scale of vampire culture and this strange rules and regulations and this international group of, governors, which was, I thought was really fascinating. And this had a lot of that, and like sort of a police force and making sure that the vampires toe the line, and it's so super interesting. And it was where it was set was not like any other vampire story I ever read. Just the setting was it was just cool, very rural, and the characters were really interesting with regard to vampire lore. So I dug that. I'm going to go on with that series as soon as I get through a couple other series. And then we have probably two of my favorite books of the last 2 months. The Crimes of Rooker Flynn from A.R. Witham. Sorry. He narrates these himself, and he does a fantastic job. I read The Crimes of Rooker Flynn in December, and then The Trial of Rooker Flynn in January. And these are two of my favorite books of those months. Yeah, they're so much fun. And they're not just fun. They're creepy, they're intriguing, they're gut-wrenching. The backstories are just the perfect setup for how much you want these characters to find one another and to be loyal and honest and to succeed in a way that they hadn't before, in a way that they didn't know they wanted to. And the best villain, oh my god, the villain, she's great. She's funny, she's ridiculous, she's terrifying, and very unique. So these are absolutely worth the listen. Listen, of course, listen. You can read them, probably just as good, but he does such a great job narrating them that they're just brilliant. Best thing I've listened to from an author narrator since Christopher Buehlman and The Black Tongue Thief, which if you know, you know. The next one would be Philip Chase and The Way of Adan. And I waited a long time for this one because he was working on getting the audiobook put together, and it was really good. You could tell the level of effort he's put into it because he's written it over many, many years. And you can tell because it has this very polished feel, this very clean narrative, this very committed character development. And this storytelling has this whimsical yet timeless feel. And I mostly say this with regard to Erd because she, and I've said this before in a couple other videos, the commitment to her magic being an actual active thing in the narrative is pretty cool. It's not just this is how it happens, or this is what it takes, or we draw this from nature, or there's a real dedication to how the magic actually happens as a descriptive force, which I loved. And like I said, I've done a couple other videos on it, but that's the short and sweet of it. I'm really looking forward to the next two books. I can't wait for them to come out on audio. That's going to be fun. And the hard copies would be beautiful to have, but I have to remind myself that I still live in a very small space. So as much as I want them, it's not realistic to own them. Okay. The next one is Mike Mullman. Ugh, my stupid lighting. Mike Molman and Becoming a Druid. And also similar to the Way of Adan, there's some real commitment to the magic. I love druids. When I was a D&D-er, I almost always played some kind of druid. If not a druid, then a cleric of nature of some sort. I loved druids. Love druids, love bards. Just love the magic system, and I was always coming up with gems and my own spells and how to enhance my own spells with gems and herbs and incantations, whatever. And so, again, full appreciation, full marks for the way the magic is presented in this. And the character is great. He's arrogant without being arrogant. And there's the only way I can explain it. And there was a twist at the end that utterly and completely destroyed me, which I love. If you can make me laugh and make me wonder and make me go, what's up here? Where are we going? And then at some point in the middle, make me just sob, I'm happy. It's a book I like and I want to read again. So I'm on to the 1.5 of that one here this week, probably, if I can get done with the 2 that I'm on that are pretty long. But I'm hoping to get to the 1.5. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name isn't in front of me. The next book in Becoming a Druid, The Protectors of Prytani. I think it's just The Protectors of Prytani. I kept wanting to put an A on there, but I don't think there's an A. But what a great series. What a fun series. What a really excellent audiobook. Yeah, I highly recommend that. Then we have my first, way back in February, my first Guy Gavriel Kay. No, second, I'm sorry. The only one I read this year. I read Tigana first, December of 2023. And then I picked up Isabel because no one else talked about it. And I absolutely loved Isabel. It had this feeling of fable and this feeling of wanting to know where you come from, wanting to understand who you are according to who came before you. Does that make any sense at all? I feel like that's kind of a timeless theme in most Guy Gavriel Kay books anyway. And I just loved Isabel. And nobody talks about it. Nobody's read it. Well, that I know of. And I love the characters. I loved where it was headed. I loved the final battle. It was really interesting. I loved the landscape of France, of modern France. So this was a really good novel. It's more personal in many ways than some of his other. I've only read 3 now, but it's more personal than the others I've read in scope. And I thought it was just fantastic. And all of everything you expect from Guy Gavriel Kay with regard to prose and character development and story building, and just what a great story. Isabel. My first, Then we have Dave Buzan and the Lair of Legends. What a great story. I mean, you have a train robbery. It's the Old West. You have a train robbery. You have an Indian scout that worked for, I think, the cavalry, or at least the U.S. Army, trying to figure out this mystery of this train robbery. What happened? Where did the money go? And he's on the verge of retirement. I don't want to give too much away, but that's just a little simple of who he is and how he just wants to get on with his life now. And he's torn between allegiances. And so he needs to finish this job and figure out what happened. And it becomes sort of a grind where he's just determined. And then there's some supernatural elements that he wasn't quite anticipating. And the story gets really good really fast. I love this story. It is super fun. It's the only horror, I think, on the whole list. And it's definitely horror. I mean, it's historical fiction too, but it's horror. And it's super good. The main character is such a fun read. And there are balloons. There are hot air balloons. I love hot air balloons. So that was a nice little fun twist. Anyway, that's a great... I think that one is... I don't say definitely. I think it's independent. But it's just a super fun story. So creepy. Yeah, there's a couple of scenes that are just perfectly formatted and really, really creepy. And then we have, in December, I read J.D. Evans' Reign and Ruin, which is part of the Mages of the Wheel series. And I've already got a couple of friends of mine set up to do like a buddy read of the prequel because freaking frack, because I love this book so much. I had a total crush on the female voice. She was amazing. I mean, amazing. It's sort of desert feel to it. The magic is very cool. There's some mental health, which is really touching in ways to me personally because I experienced some of that with my father. You have all of that female empowerment and the difficulty of trying to claim your legacy and in the face of people who don't want you to have it. So really cool, like the history of Europe feel to it, especially with regard to women. And the love affair is also fantastic. It's the perfect kind of slow burn because you believe it completely. It's just falls in line the way it should, and nothing feels forced or unnatural or unnecessary, and really, really charming. The magic of the two characters is just great. I'm so looking forward to moving on with this now. So looking forward to talking to my friends when they read it and having someone to chat with about it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And then we have The Gutter Prayer, which I read way back in January, and I absolutely loved. Gareth Hanrahan. Never anything of his before, but I'm definitely moving on to the second book in that series. I think there's only 2 on audio. There may be only 2 that there are. But it's like this unlikely group of 3 friends, some really bizarre magic, and really complicated social commentary in the way that the city runs and in the way that these 3 characters and friends are forced to live their lives, and the way that they try to move through a society that doesn't necessarily want them. Really, and I love urban fantasy, so it's all gutter rats and thievery and trying to survive. It's a great story, a really great story. Then we have Lowtown from Daniel Polanski. I'd never read any Daniel Polanski, but I was an instant fan of his prose. And the way he delivers a story, it's urban fantasy and kind of a detective noirish thing, with some twists, some political twists and some magic twists, and a really sympathetic main character, typical of the noir feel I got from it. Your main character is usually this kind of tortured soul, heart of gold, rusty on the outside. He's all those things. Very interesting, and the world he built was just really intriguing. I'm an instant fan of Daniel Polanski, so I read something else by him this year. It's about rats. God, what was the name of it? I'll think of it, but I read that, I think, in December as well, and it was quite good. It was a novella. So I'll be moving on with more of his work. And then the biggie for the year, because I read 4 books from the Vorkosigan saga by Lois McMaster-Bujold. And these books are fantastic. I was in a chat, I want to say, on Beard of Darkness, that it was mentioned, and I think I'd heard of it before, but that was like a reminder, and I picked up Shards of Honor like that week and burned through it, and I think that was like maybe March, and since then I've read 4 more of those books, and they're just great. I have one queued up for next week. I can't possibly get through all of them this year. There's a lot of them, but they're much shorter than some. They're not very long, which doesn't affect them at all because they're great. They're convoluted and interesting, and the main character is the coolest, and the love affair is timeless and really charming. It's a great story. I absolutely loved Shards of Honor. I highly recommend that. And I think, look at the reading order, because there's a lot of different opinions, and the author actually put a reading order out that I decided to follow. So that's what I did. You do whatever you want. But there's a lot of them. And yeah, that was my top 10 from new authors to me. in 2024. So cool. Tell me what you have read. Tell me what you haven't read. And perfect timing. About to sign off. Come on, don't be so cranky. And I hope you guys had a good 2024. I've got 3 more lists coming, and that's the first of them. So, yay. Talk to you later. Thanks.